Can the West make itself great again? Should it even try? Between 1800 and the turn of this millennium, the West rose to dominate the planet. Over those 2 centuries, it went from being one among several peer players in an emerging global economy to producing fully 8/10 of the world's output. Simultaneously, average incomes in the Western world, today's developed OECD economies, increased from being roughly equal to those of the rest of humanity to 50 times greater. This overwhelming economic dominance spurred a political, cultural, linguistic, and social remaking of the planet in the West's image. Almost everywhere, the nation-state, a product of Europe's internal evolution, became the mainstay of political life, replacing the immense variety of city-states, kingdoms, caliphates, bishoprics, sheikdoms, chiefdoms, empires, and feudal regimes that had previously dotted the globe. English became the language of global commerce, French, and later English again, that of global diplomacy. The world deposited its surpluses in Western banks, with the pound, then the dollar, replacing gold as the lubricant of trade among nations. Western universities became the meccas of aspiring intellectuals from across the world, and by the end of the 20th century, the planet was entertaining itself with Hollywood films and European football. Then, suddenly, history went into reverse. As 2008's Great Recession turned into the Great Stagnation, the West's share of global output declined from 80% to 60% and has continued to fall, if more slowly, since. Real wages fell, youth unemployment soared, and public services were eroded as debt, public and private, rose dramatically. Self-doubt and internal division replaced the robust self-confidence of the 1990s in Western liberal democratic political discourse. Simultaneously, other models, particularly the authoritarian central planning of the Chinese state, became increasingly influential on the world stage, bolstered by a Chinese economy which, over the last 4 decades, averaged an astonishing annual average growth in per capita income of over 8%, which meant that actual Chinese incomes doubled every decade. Why has the balance of world power swung so dramatically against the West? Is this a decline that can be reversed, or is it a natural evolution to which the West would do better to adapt? This is not the first time the world has witnessed such a dramatic rise and fall. Rome's rise to what was in its own terms global domination began in the 2nd century BC, and its dominion lasted the best part of 500 years, before crashing in the middle centuries of the first millennium AD. It may have been 1500 years ago, but this book contends that Rome's demise still has important lessons for the present, using the Roman Empire and the wider world that it spawned to think again about the unfolding history and current situation of the contemporary West. We're not the first to think that the fate of Rome might have something to teach the modern world, but so far, its history has been mobilized to offer a highly Western-centric diagnosis of what's going on. As the historian Neil Ferguson put it in a high-profile commentary on the Bataclan massacre in Paris in 2015, published in leading papers on either side of the Atlantic, not least the Sunday Times and Boston Globe, Europe has grown decadent in its shopping malls and sports stadiums, while letting in outsiders who have coveted its wealth without renouncing their ancestral faith. Like the Roman Empire in the early 5th century, Europe has allowed, emphasis added, its defences to crumble. This, Ferguson concludes, is exactly how civilizations fall.